Well, it's such an exciting time of year. Of course, the breeding season here down under is well and truly underway. So, on the next stop on our Behind the Breeding Barn series with Cobbitty Equine Farm, it seems a perfect time to catch up with Adam Bowden from Diamond Creek Farm. Of course, with the arrival of Confederate and Cannibal this year, this is a man that made it all happen. Thanks for your time, Adam. Are you as excited as us to see little Confederates and Cannibals running around in about 12 months' time from now?
Yeah, I mean, we're 6 months ahead of you. So, I think the first ones are due like early February for us here. But yeah, I'm very excited. Both of them are homebreds for us. So it means a little bit more than maybe some of the other ones we've sent down over the years.
Absolutely. We'll touch on those boys in a little bit more depth shortly. But for those who are tuning in and maybe would like to know a bit more about your operation, tell us, when did it start? Why did it start? And how big it is now?
Yeah. I mean, I've probably told the story, a bunch of times over the years, but no, I got started in like mid 2005. I was 24 at the time and, probably thought I knew way more than I do now, but a little arrogant and a little naive. But no, I started with 20 mares and with ideas that maybe it would become this one day. And, now we have probably close to 100 mares right now. We stand 14 stallions in 4 locations here in the US. And, we maintain a race stable of somewhere between 20 and 25 horses. Obviously, coming off a massive year for us in 2023, kind of the culmination of the last 18 years. And we've been shuttling stallions, to New Zealand and Australia for the last 10 years. And I think we've done quite well doing that, not only for our partners here in the US, but, the partners that and lifelong friends now that we've made with people down there. So pretty exciting.
Well, it is such an important part of the business here. Of course, those shuttle stallions have had a massive impact on our industry, and it wouldn't be where it is now if it wasn't for that North American blood filtering through. So it's super exciting. How did the relationship with Cobbitty come about? I guess in the big scheme of things, they're a fairly new player in this stallion business, but they've made a pretty serious impact early on. You must have heard about the great things that they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that was the key for me. I was young at the time when we first got started with stallions, and a couple people here took a chance on me, and I worked my tail off to make it happen. And it's kind of hard to get past youth and drive, and that striving for excellence. And Cobbitty fit that. And we're kind of looking for a new player, and they fit the bill. They stepped up and so far have delivered the goods. So hopefully that continues.
Absolutely. For you and the Diamond Creek business, how important is the physical shuttling of these stallions? And I guess in the day and age of frozen semen now, for stallion owners, that I guess seems the easy option. I know for Cobbitty, they really wanted to have these two boys here in the flesh and standing in Australia physically. Was that part of the decision-making process? Did that make it a bit of a tough call for you?
Actually, I came down there and visited and got a tour maybe 10 years or so ago before we shuttled. The Rock and Roll Dance was the first one that we sent down there. And I think when you see the people and you see the farms and you hear what they want, I think it was an obvious decision to start sending the horses in the flesh. And, people in the US were like, oh, you don't need to do that. But we found that it's massive, not only for the horses, but for the people down there. I think when you see the horses, there's some connection that you develop. And I think it's important. And our horses have bred huge bucks. And I think that was the key. Now with Confederate, he's so valuable to us. We actually entered the whole process thinking we were just going to send frozen just because of the control thing. But, I think once I met the group, I think it was obvious that they care about these horses like we do, and they're going to treat them like their own. And kind of set ourselves at ease, and we sent somebody down there from our team to kind of meet and see the place, and came back with rave reviews. So it was easy decision at that point.
fertility is a massive part of the breeding game, obviously. If you don't have that, then you don't have much. And by all accounts, these boys are really making themselves known for that, as not only what they've done on the racetrack. I know Confederate's already got a stack of mares in foal in Australia and New Zealand. That's vital. And I guess when you have a great racehorse, you're always hopeful that that piece of the puzzle will come together. But that's clearly the case for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, we did the breeding soundness exams here, and they both were, were like solid for first year horses. But like you said, once the breeding season started and they started getting those mares in fall, that just made it so much more easy. And we're limited to 140 mares here in the U.S., and both of them had 125 plus pregnancies. Well over 90%, which was huge, and that's obviously key because you guys can breed so much more than we can in the States. And so knowing that they're getting them in full and knowing that they, what they've done here in the US gives us tons of confidence to tell those guys down there, book as many as you can.
Absolutely. Well, Confederate particularly, of course, has been super popular. So I want to start with him and I guess his story. We know that he had an amazing 3-year-old year, and that was quite phenomenal to watch from afar. So we were always waiting for him to come down and be available to us. I just want to touch on, do you remember when you thought or you heard from the trainers or those even maybe earlier that you might have had something pretty special on your hands?
I mean, I may be a little braggy here, but we evaluate our horses, every week or every other week from the time they're born until the time they leave. And he was one of the last ones to leave, and he'd always been my favorite. And I can't really tell you why. It was just a feeling. And the other guys on the farm, they loved Cannibal, and those were the two. And they kept telling me, like, your guy, he's just a little too feminine for us. He's a little too feminine, but there was something about him that I felt was right. And so, once he got sent off, I told our racing manager, I said, I think he's the one. And this was in December, well before he'd ever been hooked to the rigging, as a yearling. And I always had felt like he was the one. And thank God he proved me right.
Absolutely. You were spot on there. He was the one. He was the one at 2 and then again at 3, really. He had an amazing 3-year-old year, as I've already touched on. But what was your favourite win? Because when there's so many, I guess it's hard to pick one out. But is there one that really stands out for you? It might be for personal reasons, a race you really wanted to win, or just an amazing performance?
I mean, the Breeders' Crown and the Meadowlands Pace were kind of the key signature wins for him, that will go with him for his entire career. But I think the second race in Lexington, it was the Tattersall's Pace, and he had won the week before, kind of wrapped up in 47, coming home in 25 and 2. I think 25 and 2 or 25 and 3, and he was in the spa the next day, and he jumped over the spa and sliced his knee wide open, and I think it had 12 or 14 stitches in it, and we weren't even sure we were going to race him. But to come back 6 days after that and just dominate the field, being pressure pretty much the whole way, I think it really just showed his quality and class. And to do that, and we never really told the public, what happened that week, and it was a scary week for us. But he was the king and showed it that day.
Yeah, somehow overcoming adversity. It's a pretty special, I guess, asset to have. What about his breeding? So yourself, he's a homebred, you've mentioned. When you were putting this mating together, why did you think it worked? And I guess subsequently, we know it has, but I'm sure there's been change even since then on the development of that family. So tell us a little bit about his breeding, and really, he's available to so many mares the way that he is bred.
Yeah, and I think that was cool for us because we had stood a rock and roll dance, and we had bred a bunch of our good mares to him and had a couple of fillies that we really liked. And actually, Cannibal's mother and Confederate's mother were the only 2 mares that were rock and roll dance mares that year that were bred to Sweet Lou, and it gave us both of those 2. It's like the new Golden Cross. But no, his grandmother, or second dam, was one of the first mares that I bought when I first got started in 05, and it was a pedigree at the time that I loved and I wanted to develop. And we got a 3-time Dan Patch Award winner from her in Pure Country, and we got a bunch of other stakes horses. And his mother was a top 2-year-old that had a throat issue, and they had done surgery on her, and she just didn't quite come back like we'd hoped. So we never raced her, and we bred her to Sweet Lou, kind of thinking, we wanted to put the toughness that the Rock and Roll Dance mares had with the speed from Sweet Lou, and cross your fingers and hope. And then God, we had the only two from the cross, and they both worked. So it was pretty amazing, really.
Oh, it is incredible when you think about it. And yeah, you mentioned the Golden Cross aspect. It's nearly what everybody's looking for now. You can't go to a yearling sale without hearing about it. So you've stumbled upon something pretty special there. So that's Confederate, and what he was able to achieve was quite remarkable. And we can't wait to see his, debut season down here. Have you heard about the quality of mares he's received? Because it's quite phenomenal. It's nearly as though every top race mare that's recently retired, or even just top brood mares, are going to him. He could have the best book of down under mares maybe ever seen.
Yeah, I think like you said, he fits so many mares, and there's all those Better Delay and Art Major mares that sit down there, and even some beach line mares, like they all cross with him. And that's what happened in the States too. Like he just got an incredible book of mares, not only from our own herd, but from everybody else's as well. And so hearing from the group at Cobbitty telling us the quality of mares, like you said, is just top notch, and maybe more than I even expected. So, like you said, it's pretty awesome.
Well, I have a mare that's I'm waiting for the 14-day scan to come through, so I'm crossing my fingers. I'm very excited. So I can't wait. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. What about Cannibal? Because I think maybe in any other year, he would probably be right up there with the horse that we're speaking of in the same light as Confederate, but he just hit that one year where he had to take on such a superstar. He was a pretty special racehorse himself, though. Tell us a little bit about him, and maybe on the breeding side. You've just spoken of Confederate's great family, but could he be maybe even a little stronger?
I would say most people would say that's the case, that his female side, traces to a couple of stallions and a lot of good fillies, and all the way back to delinquent account. And so, he's as deep as Confederate. And, he was a special horse. Like I said earlier, the guys at the farm, they loved him, and our racing manager and vice president, they were obsessed with him from the time that he was a foal. And, he came out swinging early at 2, and we took our time with him because we knew that if we were slow, he was going to develop into something really special. He just happened to come along in the same year as Confederate, and right near the end of his 2-year-old season, he tailed off. And so over the winter, we knew we had Confederate, and so the idea in people's heads were we should geld him. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to geld this one. He's just, he had been too good his whole entire life, and the idea maybe he had tailed off because of attitude. But I was like, my gut's telling me not to do that. And so we decided not to geld him, thankfully. And he responded with, like you said, he had an excellent 3-year-old season. I think he won 11 or 12 races, made a ton of money for us, and won some major races like the Adios for us. He just happened to be chasing Confederate all year. So a little unfair to him, but again, a great horse in his own right.
You mentioned attitude, and it definitely wasn't that, because I was lucky enough to have a little bit to do with Cannibal when I came down, and my good friend Nancy Tucker, of course, trained him, and I actually got to jog him one day, which is a little bit of something exciting. But he was just the most beautiful horse. You'd never know he was a colt. He was just a stunning individual and just had the best attitude. Attitude is everything in racing. You can have all of the ability in the world, but unless you want to do it, then sometimes we don't see it come to fruition. I think that's something really important with this guy.
And he was like that from the second he was born. And his mother is as mean. She will tear you up. But he was sweet from the second he came out. And I think that allowed him to basically race his heart out, sometimes get it ripped out by Confederate, and then come back and do what he did to the rest of the group. And like you said, Nancy did an incredible job with him. And, unfortunately for him, he was born in 2020 and not in 2019 or 21, because he'd be worth a ton more. But to us, he's invaluable, and we supported him heavily with some really, really good mares, including Confederate's mother got bred to him and is in foal. So maybe a little tight on the cross there, but I've never been one to shy away from that either.
Well, we'll wait and see what transpires there. And I think it's a great opportunity. You've mentioned the cross. It clearly works. It's worked. Well, lightning struck twice in this respect, but not everyone can afford to go to the top tier to the top tier stallions, I should say. And Confederate standing at a good price. Not that that's, I guess, scared anyone away, but Cannibal is an option that is, really, really, it's a genuine price, and it's something that I think most breeders can really consider. So that's exciting.
Yeah, we did the same thing in the States. We put him at a number that, he's basically the same cross as Confederate, and he showed high class and high quality his whole entire race career. And we were rewarded with a tremendous book, actually. And his fertility is as good or better than Confederate's. And, Confederate maybe was the better racehorse and, has that whole aura around him. But I think if you ask the people that raised the horses, and even now, like, Cannibal is still their favorite. They still think he's the prettiest. They still think he's, he just has that presence about him that maybe is lacking with Confederate. But, he's special to us and always will be. And I think people that get to spend any time around the horse will see the same thing.
Yeah, no doubt. He's an absolute darling. There's no doubting that. Something you don't see a lot in stallions, and particularly of his quality and what he's had to do, the travelling and all that's involved. He just kept such a cool head through the whole process. So that is going to stand him in really good stead, I have no doubt, going forward. I can talk to you all day, Adam, but we will let you go. I know that you're at volleyball training at the moment, so you're multitasking, but we appreciate your time.
Always.
Can't wait to see what these boys are able to achieve. Can't wait to see the first few of those foals born in the not too distant future as well. We'll be keeping an eye with interest, and we'll do the same. We'll make sure we'll send out plenty of footage once their first babies hit the ground in less than 12 months' time from now.
Yeah, we even sent mares down there too, to New Zealand, and a couple of them are getting bred to Confederate too. So we're excited in both places.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.